Hello, everybody. Gotta thank everyone for actually coming, since it's the last slot, and looks like most of you are still sober. So, congratulations. Could be wrong about some of you. But yeah, let's get this started. Oh, by the way, this is actually a link to the actual presentation. I'll have it on the last slide too if anyone's interested. So, because this is going to be a little fast-paced, there's there's some code that might need a little more explaining in the future. So, so I'll give you guys a couple seconds here, and we'll be off. Just a disclaimer: don't do anything stupid. Pretty much same thing with any other presentation here. A little bit about me. I'm a security engineer on a cyber defense team. I like programming, kind of, and this whole project I kind of did on the side. It wasn't anything official I had to do. I just kind of got bored. And all the code that you'll see here, it only took about a half hour to do. So not much to it. With that said, there's no framework around it, so it's kind of hard to reproduce without putting a lot of work into it. So, had to throw this in here. The security aspect of cyber is very tough, and maybe it's hardly doable. Yeah. So, phishing. Everyone here knows what phishing is. Obviously, or else you wouldn't be here. So the thing with phishing is there's usually want to put a little sense of urgency into it. Usually want to request something back. So we actually have some employees who will, and you guys have probably seen it too, you'll get an email saying, hey, I've got this phishing email. Well, they're not really asking for you to do anything. There's literally just information like, call this number for more information. That's not a very good way to phish. So it's probably just spam. And we get a lot of emails saying, hey, call this number to go, if you want to be invited to this conference or this or that. It's like, yeah, that's not phishing. A lot of times people will actually put your name in the email, which is usually pretty trivial to do. So just keep that in mind. If you are phishing others, you want to make it as personal as possible. The threats of phishing. The main point I want to throw out here is if someone phishes one of your employees, they can essentially become one of your employees. If they get on your network, they are that employee. I know there are safeguards, obviously, but you basically don't want your employees' computers to become owned. And when I say employee, either employees in your own company or employees for one of your clients. So sometimes phishing emails are actually forwarded to other people. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that happen before. This is kind of what it looks like. So it's just a bad day all around when that happens, because then the other employees start sending it out and clicking the links and whatnot. So how does it work? Curiosity, fear, and sense of duty. What I'm going to present to you is I actually sent it out of pure curiosity. That's the vector I like taking because people are generally curious. By nature, people are curious. So if you've got that edge to your phishing email, you're gonna have more success than taking other vectors. So why should we phish our employees? And actually this iterates again. You can become the employee essentially if their computer becomes owned. It's fun to do, obviously. Anti-phishing software is not fail-proof, and if a vendor tries to sell you anti-phishing software and they say that it works 100% of the time, or even anywhere near that, they're bullshitting you. Phishing is not spam. It's always a lot of times it's very targeted. A lot of times they change just, a few things, and sure, spam does that too, but the problem with phishing is that it's actually out to get someone. It's actually sent out to get something from the user, and that's very dangerous. So you want to educate your employees or employees of your clients before the bad guy does, because there is going to be a lesson learned sometime in the life of that company. So this just goes back to phishing is technically spam, but spam is not phishing. This is actually a real spam email that someone sent us, and they're like, "Oh, this is phishing." We're like, "No, this isn't." But a lot of times phishing looks like this. "Hey, John, can you send me the account details for the thing we just signed?" You're giving away information that should not go to someone else. With this one, it's like, yeah, if they want to get information from you, you actually have to act on it and, spend more than a few seconds. So here we go. This is a phishing email I sent out to a company. 106, the phishing email gets sent out to all the employees. It only took about 2 minutes to send it out to all the employees. What I did was I actually put a random wait time between every email that got sent out. So because I knew how the spam software worked, I knew that if I sent a lot out at one time, most likely it would get through. But I didn't want it to be all at once completely, because then it could have got throttled, or it could have got, gray listed or whatnot. So literally 10 minutes later, 13% of the employees had clicked the link and 5% tried logging in within 10 minutes. A little while after that, people started reporting the link. And this is something that you actually want to record. The people who actually inform you, those are like one of the talks I was at, that those are the people you actually want to give kudos to. You want to note those people, because those are the ones who are going to keep your company secure. So about a couple hours later, an escalation coordinator got involved, sent out an email saying, "Hey, so there's this email going around. We're working on it." And I've got to make a note about this. We didn't tell anybody that we were going to send this out except for the CEO. And even he was taken by surprise. We kind of had to remind him, but we sent it out. We wanted everyone to follow the standard protocols, and for the most part, they actually did work. So there were good parts to that. So if you send out a phishing email, you want to make sure that people are going to respond to it just like any other day. You don't want to go tell, your email team, "Oh, by the way, we're going to do this at this time, so, get ready," because they're going to act differently, and you don't want that. So pretty much what I was doing at this point, I was tailing the logs in real time. It was fun. I've been in an IT type role professionally for about 9 years now, and I kid you not, this was it was the best 2 hours of my career I've ever had, was watching these logs. It was great. So, the bad part. DNS provider got pissed off. My VPS provider kind of got wind that I was doing some nefarious things. The good thing is my VPS provider actually they actually sent me the email of the guy who reported me. I'm like, "Oh, I know that guy. He works for that company. So I emailed him. I explained everything. I'm like, hey, can you email them back and tell them I'm doing a test? He's like, yeah. He's like, sure. So, I mean, kudos to him. Even though he screwed up my whole experiment, that's good. I couldn't really be that mad. I mean, I was like, this really sucks, but this guy is doing what he's supposed to. And I wish there were more. Maybe other people did report it, but he's the one I went to, and he got me unblocked. So eventually, the DNS provider pretty much just blackholed me. And I think they did it for quite a while, because I was trying to get the India team to also click on it. I got like one person on the India team, and it's a pretty large India team. So I know that something was failing overnight. So I got my tickets closed, and then 5 p.m. the next day, people pretty much stopped clicking on it. So here are the stats. 12% reported the email, 18 clicked on the link, and 9 tried logging in. That's a big number. That's kind of concerning. That's really concerning. So think of it this way. 9% of your employees, someone could have theoretically gotten into their account, since they've got the credentials, and done a lot of damage. 9%, shoot, even if you own 1% of the credentials, depending on who the people are, they could bring down I don't want to say the whole company, but they can really disrupt operations if they knew what they're doing with those credentials. So here's how it works. You send out the email. The user clicks on a link that goes to a page that they don't really read the link very well. There's an intermediary page, and I'll get into why there's an intermediary page a little more. It redirects the person to a completely different page. So let me I'll kind of note this right now. On number 2, there's a little dot above E. That's called, that's a Unicode character. When you go to a Unicode website, the browser's gonna rewrite the URL to what's called puny code. So it's completely visible to the user. There are a bunch of dashes in the URL and whatnot, and you don't want the user to see that. So this is why I actually redirect them to a slightly different page where it's just completely missing that Unicode character. And the user, hopefully, does not notice. The user sees that it's a professional looking page, or maybe if it's even familiar to them. And then the form logs the user's input, if they actually input something, and then the user gets scorned. So let's get into this a little bit. As I said, you want to contact the appropriate authorities, the appropriate parties before you do this. You want to let the CEO know. You want to get other people to know. Basically, if you piss off the right person and you know that they're going to fire you, let them know beforehand. So possibly put a list together of people who you don't want to piss off and who will actually fire you if you do this without telling them. Let them know. just do it. So you also want to inform your providers that you're going to do this to. I think I actually have that in a different slide. Let your VPS provider know. Let your DNS provider know. Your ISP, they might not catch it, depends on the volume. You want to get a list of the email addresses. I know in some organizations you can find a distro list or a bunch of distro lists and then expand it, and then you got the email addresses, and a lot of times you actually have their full name. And use the names. So you definitely want to use maybe at least their first name. So, and then you want to test. You don't want to overdo this, because if you test, especially from the place you're going to be sending out the email from, you could actually get blacklisted before you actually do the real thing. So don't overdo it. And I know this is kind of like, it's kind of like an art. You kind of have to know what your limits are. You kind of have to know the boundaries, and you kind of have to know how the spam solution works. Since I have worked on the spam solution to a certain extent and have seen how it works, I knew what I could and couldn't get away with. So I kind of had, this wasn't a complete black box approach, but I tried to make it as black box as I could, knowing what I knew. So, yep, and here, yeah, contact your DNS provider, VPS provider. You could be shut down. You could go to court in an extreme case. Probably not. I mean, it might be against the terms of service with some providers. And you might be better off using smaller providers like GoDaddy and stuff like them. I mean, they don't care if they have your business for, you know, if they're like, oh, we're not going to do business with this guy anymore, whatever. You know, the smaller ones, they kind of want to keep your business. Postfix. So what I did, you could actually use your own relay that's already set up somewhere. If not, if you have a Linux box, just set up Postfix, install it, service Postfix start or system CTL start Postfix will start it, and then you want to check config it on possibly, or system control enable it so it turns on when your computer turns on, or not. I mean, as long as you start it and you use it once, you actually don't need to keep it enabled. So. And actually, you can use Postfix without configuring it whatsoever. I'm using Fedora. I don't know what other distros are like, but I know Fedora, at least, you can just literally start it up and it'll just work. So virtual servers. This is for your website that you're going to be putting together. This is just an example, about $70 a year for something that'll work. That's stupid cheap. I just pay $70 a year, so I have something to play around with, really. Cheap options, I really like Ramnode, DigitalOcean. You guys have heard of all of them. GoDaddy, yeah, they're cheap. I don't think I would personally use them again. Lowendbox.com has coupons and they have deals and whatnot. So if there's a deal out there for something stupid cheap, go to the website. It's kind of like a blog format. One thing to note, these are virtual servers. Yeah, bad joke. All right. DNS homoglyphs. All right, so this is kind of where I threw another edge into my my phishing email. I'm using what are called homoglyphs in the actual link that's in the email address. For example, google.com with that little dot above the E is not google.com. That'll go to a completely different website. What the user will see when they go to this google.com with that little dot, this is what they're going to see in the browser at the top. They're going to see something completely noticeable. You don't want the user to see that. So that is the reason why I redirect you to a different page that is just just US characters, just normal characters. And actually I'll show some examples of what the user may see, at least in Outlook. There are obviously other Unicode characters. These are all, that's an A. These are all E's and O. I mean, they're not really A's, E's, and O's, obviously. They're characters from different languages. So don't rely on them, though, because people will notice them. And sometimes registering a domain with Unicode characters can be challenging. I need to look into this a little more. I know if you have characters from like German and you have characters from Russian, they might not let you register it. They actually ask you what language the domain is in. And I tried putting a few other domains together and they just would not let me register them. So your mileage may vary. If it's just one Unicode character, you'll have better success. In Unicode, doesn't is kind of hard to program with. I was trying to send an email from a Unicode address. Python just did not like it. Postfix needs to be compiled with a certain flag, and it's not normally, at least with English distributions, it's not normally something that's compiled in, at least not what I've seen recently. So you might actually have to compile your own version of postfix. Keep this in mind, you actually don't need to do all this unless if you're trying to send from a Unicode address, which I did not do, because like I said, I couldn't get it working. So, but it is possible. So this is an example of what the user would see. Wrong button. Google.com, you see that little dot above the E. They hover over it, they'll see the same exact thing, and the lower left, same exact thing. So I actually had to change these slides, because in the past, I don't know what has happened between the first time I presented this and now, but it used to actually show the puny code in the lower left, both in Firefox and Chrome. So I really don't know what has gone on since then, but here's another one. Google.com. You hover over it. I don't know why. It did not show anything this time. And it shows a little dot down here. So someone's going to see this. They're going to be like, Google.com. No, nothing. I mean, just by looking at it, you can't even tell that it doesn't actually go there. In the lower left, oh yeah, just shows a little dot. So here's another one. Again, I really like the dot over the E. Click here for your serving of poutine. Click here, don't see anything, you hover over it. For some odd reason, this time when I took the screenshot, nothing popped up here when you hovered over it, and yet it still shows that little dot down here. Not very noticeable, and I know you guys sitting in the back especially are probably having a very hard time seeing that little dot. So let's get back to DNS. Namecheap.com. I love them. I used to use GoDaddy in the past. Accidentally bought some domains I didn't actually want, so went with Namecheap after that. Don't buy a domain that's similar to, say, a big company. You actually don't want to buy Google.com with that little dot. You don't want to buy Cisco with a weird character in it, because you know what? That's not good, because if those companies hear about that, you could actually face legal trouble. So if you're going to copy, if you're going to find a URL, if you're going to find a domain that's similar to the company you're trying to phish, get that company's permission, buy something similar to that company's domain, or make up something completely different. Make your own fake company that sells this one product or whatnot. Don't go out and make something that's going to look like a big company, because, like I said, if they get wind, that's bad news for you. SPF records, this comes down to how the spam solution works. I found that a lot of times if you don't have an SPF record at all, stuff usually gets through. But there are some organizations where you actually do have to have an SPF record. If that's the case, make a real SPF record. And I know some of you might be like, what is that? It's a TXT DNS record. Basically, an SPF record says, hey, if email comes from this domain and it's coming from this IP address, then good. So the receivers look at that and they're like, oh, well, this is coming from a completely different IP address. I'm not going to accept this. So it's just a form of validating that something is coming from a legit source. You could send out an email from the actual corporate network. I did this from home. Like I said, I wanted it to be as black box as I could have it. So I didn't send it from inside. But if you have to, then you have to. It's up to you. So I actually have a website called domainbimbo.com. I thought of that name while I had a few at DEF CON. It takes words from one list and words from another list, smashes them together, does a who is, And if it's available, then it'll show it on the website. It's just kind of a stupid thing I put together. A lot of domains are not safe for work. So, but it's fun to look at, especially when you're drunk. So let's encrypt. The web page that I put together, I wanted it to show that little lock. You can do encryption very easily, very cheaply with Let's Encrypt. I actually found out about Let's Encrypt, and literally within 10 minutes I had it working on my web server. It's stupid easy to do. Things actually are encrypted, and you will actually see that little lock up in the browser. So that's good. Do it. Just do it. Users will see that little lock and they'll be like, oh, this is secure. I mean, it is what it is. And sure, yeah, the connection's secure. That doesn't mean that the website is actually, legit. So email process. I had to throw this in here too. Get all the email addresses and the names. Create a CSV with all this information. You iterate through the CSV. You email each person with this information, and then you sit back and you tail the logs. So we'll get into that a little bit. So here's what the information looks like. This is the CSV. I've got their first name. I've got their last name. Then I created a random string. I originally took this information and I did an MD5 hash against it. I decided, well, that could, in theory, be decrypted, or, at least someone could brood it. So I actually just created a completely random hash. So at the end, I actually have this. Now you want this. This is actually what identifies the user, and I hope you guys in the back can see this. I know it's pretty low. But this will actually identify who had clicked the email. You want it to be completely random, but this is actually useful when they click the email. And I'll show you this too. The link has this random string in it, and so when they go to your website, you can take a look at the log and see the same little blob in the access logs, and then you can say, oh, well, since this person got this link, and they're the only one who got this specific link with this specific little random string in it, then I know who clicked it. Assuming, of course, that they didn't send it to someone else and they clicked it. So the phishing script, before this, I don't know if I ever had written Python before. So like I said, this only took me about a half hour to get together. Like most of that time was learning Python or just copying and pasting stuff off the internet. But I'll go through this really quickly. Basically, this is the first argument that you pass to the script, second argument, third. You give it their name, you give it their email address, and then that unique blob. And then the from address. Obviously, everything else is pretty much self-explanatory, subject, from, to. This is the actual message. Now, this is just the plain text message. Did I? Okay, I think I did change that. This is plain text. So for whatever reason, the email client doesn't accept HTML, it'll drop down to this plain text message. Unfortunately, it's not as intuitive as if you had used HTML because there's nothing to click. So they would actually have to literally copy and paste this into a browser. And that's why you include HTML, because most email clients will accept HTML and they will actually render it. So pretty much here's just a link. They click on the link. It says click here to immediately reset your password, or log into the portal immediately to reset your password. Now, and I want to make a note. You want to throw, if this is looking like it's coming from within your organization, if you want to make it look like it's coming from within your organization or whatever organization you're copying, take the standard footer and also put that in there. So this is the code that pretty much just sends it out. So looking at all this code, most of it was literally just the messages. You just attach the plain, you attach the HTML message, actually attach it down here, send it to your local host or whatever email relay you have, and it just works, and then you quit at the end. So actually sending out the email, this is what it looks like. And actually this was kind of in one of the last examples. First name, email address, blob. So I was actually having an issue. I was just going to do one-liner to send this out. I'm just putting this down here for to be complete. I actually had to write a bash script that wrote another bash script. To this day, I don't know why. I pretty much just made a bash script and then I executed that, which actually worked out pretty well because then I had evidence of exactly how I did it instead of just creating a one-liner and just going through that. So here's what the user saw when it came to their inbox. This is pretty, I mean, not the exact thing, but it just says log into the portal. You know, it has all the standard stuff on the bottom. So here's what the user didn't see. At the bottom, I actually put this in here, and this is exactly word for word. This communication and any attached files may contain information that is not confidential or privileged. This is a simulated phishing attempt and will not harm your computer. If you are reading this, if you are reading the entirety of this message, good job. Please do not click the link as the event will be logged. Now, keep in mind, I had about 20% of the people click the link and about 9% log in. So it just goes to show that people don't always read everything in the message. If you make the footer about the same length of the actual footer, they're not going to read it because they're like, oh, that's just, I see this literally every day, probably hundreds of times a day. So, and this is actually what saved me when the CEO called. He said, hey, we've got this issue. What's going on? You guys need to get it fixed. And we said, hey, yeah, go read that email you got. Waited for a minute. He's like, what the heck? What are you, why I'm not going to read. No, just go read it. He read it, started cracking up. He's like, yeah, you got me. So I'll try not to keep this up too long because it's, because of spinning head. Find a login URL that your company hosts, make a copy of the website. This is actually what I did was I made a copy of something that was out there. It was like an internal portal type thing. Literally just copy the whole website. I copied it with Chrome. I just went to save as. That actually didn't get all the files, so I think I did like a wget or something and I scraped the rest of it. Put it all in and it just worked. So I'm like, okay, whatever. You want to modify all the URLs. Make sure you do a search and replace. Don't do it manually, because if you don't, then someone who hosts a web server in that company is going to start seeing some really weird stuff. Like if you're linking to an image to the real site, they're going to be like, what the heck's going on? You want to disable the password field, and I say this kind of to save you from headache. If you're actually sending this out and you're not trying to be nefarious, you don't actually want their password. And some people actually, they'll argue, well, you do want the password because what if they're just typing in gibberish or whatnot? Okay, well, you could possibly modify the code to get the first 3 characters or something. I don't know. But once you get the password, then you're going to have to go out to all those users again and be like, oh, you need to reset your password because, hey, you just sent it to me. You don't want to have their password in a log. It's just not good. So then you point that form to a script that you wrote to actually capture the data. So that's where that whole redirect comes in. And then you want to write a script to actually log who clicked it and then redirect them to something that'll actually scorn them. So here's the wrapper page. This pretty much just logs their IP address. It logs the referred, just kind of to see where people are coming from. Then it actually takes that hashed it takes that hashed blob. It takes that unique URL. And then what it does is it'll actually search for that unique URL in the log. And what's cool is once it does that, it'll actually find that user's actual name not in the log, in the actual CSV that you put together, the lookup CSV, and then it'll actually put their actual name into the log for you. And then after that, it'll spit them out to a completely different web page. So once they click on the link, it'll basically just log that they clicked it, spit them out to the login page after that. So this is kind of what the log looks like. Time, date stamp, the referral URL right here, the actual website they went to, their IP address, and then their actual name right here. So as you can see, some of these are kind of screwed up. So there were some people trying some weird stuff out, and it ended up in the log. Now these two last lines down here, I know for you guys in the back it might be a little hard to see. Remember how I said that my DNS providers and my DNS provider and my VPS provider blocked me? Well, this was the support ticket that went to them. The support ticket had the link in it. So someone over there actually clicked the link. And it showed up in my logs. That was kind of funny. So if I ever want to reference my ticket again, I could just look at my logs and, oh, that's the ticket number. So it happens. You see weird stuff when you send this stuff out. So the login page, copy a pre-existing page, like I said, modify it, make it, or make your own official looking page. Honestly, I just made a login form. It didn't even say what it was for. So, and then right here, this is the important part for the password value. You want the value to equal nothing. So it will not transmit anything when they actually put it in. The intermediary page. So this is pretty much the same thing. This is actually after they submit their data. This is a same intermediary type script, except this one that actually doesn't look up. Since it doesn't have that blob, since they're redirected, it doesn't actually look up their name. But it will actually show you, it logs their email address that they put in or their username they put in. So, and then here's what the log looks like after they actually logged in. Same sort of deal. Oh, actually, I guess I did have there was a technical difficulty that I was having actually translating this. The technical difficulty was I just didn't care and didn't really want to go that extra mile, that extra few minutes to actually code that in. But in theory, yes, you could actually have this look up the user's name instead of showing that stupid blob here. So here are all the email addresses, and then you could tell down here, someone put something in like blah, 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 screwyou.com. You could tell that they were they're kind of testing stuff out. And you're going to see most of this like at the end of your test because people are going to start, talking and, oh, well, let me see what happens when I type this in. So, and actually it's kind of funny. There are a lot of people in the company telling other people, hey, this is a test. Go click on the link and try log it in. Haha, look what it does. So we're getting a lot of people doing that at the end, mostly the second day of the testing actually. So, and this is literally what the login page looked like. I probably should have put together a whole screenshot. This is all they saw. It didn't say it's for this application or that application. It just says support secure login. So, and this is where the curiosity part comes in. People are going to be like, what the hell am I locked out of? I don't know what this is. I got to log in to see what I'm locked out of, or at least try logging in to reset my password. They had no idea what they were logging into, and that's the security aspect, or the curiosity aspect, is people are going to be generally curious and want to get back into whatever they're locked out of for some odd reason. Who knows? But I think the main thing is the main reason why people are probably doing this is because possibly they're thinking, I didn't even try logging into anything recently. What the heck's going on? Someone's trying to get into my account. Let me see if it's still active and this and that. So, which is kind of little story here. One guy who actually logged into this was on the Linux team. He actually did an LDAP change literally minutes before this was sent out. So he thought he actually did break something. So he tried logging in. He scrambled trying to log in. And he's like, "Oh, this isn't. Yeah, I didn't actually break anything." So this is the actual website that they saw after they tried logging in. I tried to keep it funny, so people didn't get pissed off at me. There is actually more to it. If you actually go to the phishing presentation link, you can actually click on here's the link, and then you can see the full thing. I actually described the things that people should be looking for in their email, in the future. So it didn't just say this is a phishing attempt. It kind of outlined everything that people should be aware of. So what a random winner won. We actually took all the people who reported the email, and then they got put into a drawing, and then they actually got a tinfoil hat. They didn't get to meet Weird Al. That would have been awesome, though. But they got a tinfoil hat with a gift certificate in it. But on the other side, we kind of logged the people who tried logging in, and a random culprit won a singing fish for his desk for a couple weeks. So actually it was the guy on the Linux team, and I felt really bad for him. So other considerations, you have to kind of think about what the best time is to send this out. You could try acting as an actual vendor. This will help you out legally, because if you make up your own company, there's not going to be some kind of fake company out there trying to sue you because you copy their stuff. At least I hope not. You could actually try sending out a secure email. So a lot of companies are getting into the secure email business where you just get an email and then you get a link. It says click this link to read the secure email, and then you go to a login page. That would actually be a very good way to get people. You could actually skip the whole login page completely and just harvest email addresses. I mean, same thing, you're just not going as far with that. You could actually target specific departments, which actually, this is what real phishers do usually. A lot of times we'll get emails from like accounting department about an actual phishing email that's directed towards accounting type software or accounting type functions. You could actually send it slower, just a technique to not get caught. Fonts are very important. Check your fonts when you're putting the HTML together. Some will highlight those Unicode characters very distinctly, so you need to keep that in mind. Cross-site scripting, I don't know why I put this in here, but sure, if you can do it, do it. As long as you're not going to break anything or piss off more people. And the one last thing is I'm actually, one of these days, I'm going to put together a CTF game for our company where it's kind of like just a little, hacking lab or whatnot, and then hide little flags throughout the company. If you're thinking about doing that, put a little flag into the header, put a little flag into the login page or something. Keep a list of all those flags, and then when you get your whole game up and going, people can submit those flags and, give them prizes or whatnot. So, and that's about all there is to it. Like I said, I know I went pretty fast, and there's not a lot of code, but you might want to look into it a little more. I'll do a Q&A, and I'll keep this up. If you actually do want to take a better look at the presentation, go to my website, /phishingpresentation.com. It links to this actual Google slide. So does anyone have any questions? So the question was how many people I sent this out to before I got caught. So it only took me 2 minutes to send it out to the whole organization. So I'll just say it was less than 1,000 people I sent it out to. But yeah, basically it was sent out to everybody. And I also that's a good point too. I sent it out to everyone, not just so that it got past the email filter, but I didn't want people to have enough time to react. If I were to have sent this out, I don't know, say within a week, it probably would have been shut down, quarter way through or whatnot. With that said, like I said, you could send this out slowly. If you're going to do it slowly, do it very slowly. You kind of want it, you want it to be fast enough where either you're not going to get detected at all within a certain amount of time, or you want it to be slow enough where people just kind of are like, oh, yeah, I think we saw this last week maybe or something. So I think there was another, oh, yep. Mm-hmm. So yeah, good question. So yeah, you can make. So the question was whether or not you could actually make the email look too good, with insider information, correct? Yeah. So and that's one of the balances of IT of doing pen testing and whatnot. Yeah, I did have insider information. I made it look really good. So honestly, if I were to do this again, I would do it without any information whatsoever. But this was like the first time just to kind of gauge how people would react and whatnot. So, but yeah, that is a very good point. Uh, Not so that's still being worked on. So with the user education. So, but yeah, that's it. If you have any more questions, I will talk to you off stage. And thanks for coming.